March for Life. I think that if the Earth survives another couple of generations, another age, to where we're looking back on our own day as a different age, that history will look at this time as the darkest of all dark ages. The time when they were killing their babies. I mean, I really think that my own grandkids are going to say, Grandpa, why were you guys okay with killing all the babies before they were born? And I don't know exactly what I'll say to them. We weren't fine, but it was the law, strangely enough. It's just, now, okay, I haven't talked about this on the channel here, so there's two big things when it comes to discussing life issues, and especially the problem of legalized abortion. And the first is that I do not understand it. I mean, I do not understand. I remember a time, maybe back like in high school, when it seemed to me like this was a tricky question, if abortion should be legal or not. But anymore, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, nothing about the argument makes sense. Should we kill the babies before they're born? Like, I don't even know how that becomes a question. But the baby's unwanted. Well, if there's an unwanted baby, is it the baby's problem? It seems like that's a problem of the person that doesn't want them. Hold on a minute here. Or say the baby was conceived by violence. Is it the baby's fault? I think we should be very tough on crime. I think we should make adoption a lot easier. But how is it that the life of the baby gets ended? Or that the baby was going to have a difficult life? As if, like, what kind of strange world is it that being murdered or killed is better than having a difficult life? Are we that Epicurean? So I just don't, normally, you know, you have to understand the other side of the argument. I don't. The other problem is this. There's a different way that we speak about abortion politically versus theologically. Or maybe even publicly versus individually.
108.
There you go. Thank you.
You want a receipt?
No, thank you.
Oh, we didn't.
What, you know, it's the state's business to determine what is murder, what's legal and illegal. That's not the church's business. The church, I suppose, has some wisdom from God because we have the law of God. So it's like cheat sheets for natural law. But natural law says, don't kill the babies. But the church is there to speak grace and mercy and peace to sinners, so that there's so many thousands of moms that have had abortions, and there's so much sympathy. One of the things that I saw at the March for Life yesterday was a mom that said, "I regret my abortion." And I bet you could multiply that by millions. And so to those who have committed the crime, the sin of abortion, we have this great, comforting, profound good news that Jesus died for that sin too, that sin is also forgiven. That Jesus is merciful.
Just a coffee?
Yes, thank you. Jesus loves, that Jesus loves you. If that's you, Jesus loves you. And his blood covers your sin too. But here we have this example of King David in the Old Testament, an adulterer and a murderer, and the Lord forgave him his sins. God be praised. So there's these two words to preach: the word of law, wisdom, natural law; sin, condemnation; and then there's the word of gospel. And we want to preach them both, but it's difficult to say them at the same time. Like it's difficult to stand up there and preach the severity of the sin of abortion while also preaching the mercy that Christ has for all people who sin. And so these things are often difficult. It's difficult to try to say both of those things with as clear voice as you want to. Anyway, I got a little video from the rally. I'll show you guys that now.
Returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
Is it because we believe the sick should be cared for and loved, rather than being told their best option is death through euthanasia or assisted suicide? Or is it because being pro-life means being pro-love? For every life, there is enough love given to us by God to fill every heart and soul.
Do you want to live inside the country where Down syndrome is disappearing? From the title of this article, you might think that the doctors in Iceland have somehow figured out how to cure Down syndrome. In fact, the article relates that, quote, since prenatal screening tests were introduced in Iceland in the early 2000s, close to 100% of women who received a positive test for Down syndrome terminated their pregnancy. And to bring this shocking tragedy closer to home, the article explains that according to recent data, the United States has an estimated termination rate of 67% when a child tests positive for Down syndrome before birth.
Here goes the march, by the way. One of the tricky things about the theology of the abortion movement, or the ideology, I suppose, of the pro-abortion movement, has to do with feminism and women's rights, which I've never understood. Now, let me tell you guys what I think about feminism. This is due to, well, I don't think this is that controversial, but apparently it is. Now, so let's just kind of back up and look at the biology of babies. And I'll try to say this as sort of not, I'm going to try to be as not lewd as I can possibly be for the kiddos. So there's a biological difference between men and women. It's breaking news these days. And that difference manifests itself when a man and a woman lie down in bed like husband and wife, and they get up from bed, and you say, now what's going to be the consequences here? And we notice that there's different consequences. A woman can stand up from the marriage bed and be pregnant, which means she has a whole new life inside of her. For 9 months, her whole body changes. She's carrying this life there, and then the baby's born, which is an incredible difficulty, giving birth, and then the baby belongs to the mom, and the mom's taking care of that baby. That's how that goes. The man can stand up from that marriage bed or from the act of marriage and have very little consequences at all, physical, biological consequences. He can stand up and walk away. So there's a disparity there. And it's not fair. That disparity is not fair. And we should equalize the disparity that comes from the risk of going into the marriage bed. Now there's two ways to equal out the disparity, and here's the thing that is amazing to me. It seems to me like a true feminism would say that we want men to bear the responsibility that women have to bear biologically from lying down in the marriage bed. Now, the men can't have a baby inside of them, but the men can take care of the woman who's carrying the baby, can help protect them, can be there for them, can support them. And when the baby's born, that the man, the father, can be there, and he can be with that mom for the rest of that mom's life, supporting her, helping her, taking care of her, sharing in the responsibility of having a baby. That the man shares in the risk of the woman. That seems like a true right feminism. And you know what we call that? It's marriage. The man says, I'm gonna be with you no matter what, always. I'm not gonna get up from this bed and leave. I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna be with you. I'm gonna carry your burdens. I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna do everything I can to protect you and the children that we might have, and so forth and so on. We're in this thing together. We're going to share the consequences, share the load. That seems like a true marriage, seems like the ultimate true feminism. But for whatever reason, modern feminism has gone the boom other way and says, no. It shouldn't be that the man shares in the responsibility, but rather that the woman shares in the irresponsibility. The biological irresponsibility of men. It should be, modern feminism says, that a woman should be able to get up from the act of marriage and be just as unaffected as the man is. So a man doesn't get pregnant, so we got to make sure that the woman doesn't get pregnant either. The man has no biological consequences, so we got to make sure that the woman has no biological consequences either. That's the promise of birth control, but birth control fails. And so that's the promise of the abortion industry, of big abortion. That the women can share in the man's biological irresponsibility after sex. And it's so fantastically obvious that is a devolution, that's going backwards. You look at the man who has a baby and then leaves, and we say that's just wrong, it's immoral. But this is now what we say. Now we want the women to be able to share in that same sort of leaving. Because a woman just can't leave, you have to have the child leave. Whatever sort of horrible, barbaric way, cut in half and suction cupped out of the womb, or vacuumed out of there. It's just the worst. Sorry, I was trying to avoid that. The barbarism of the whole thing, but it's just moving backwards, and it just seems like we're off our heads. It doesn't. Now, you guys can, I suppose, if you disagree somehow, you can complain about it in the comments and tell me why I'm so ignorant about this or why I don't understand it, but it seems to me very simple. In fact, I think my whole political philosophy is very, very simple, and it just boils down to this: babies are good. Politically speaking, babies are good. Now, this is original sin and all that, but politically, babies are good. So that we shouldn't kill them. before they're born. I mean, I don't know why that is a radical statement. Or or whatever happens to get babies, like a man and a woman, we should probably call that marriage. It's so, like, it's like standing in the center of the world and everyone thinking that you're like way out on the fringes. That's the thing that I don't get about it. Anyhow, the Marches for Life come to you in January because it's the anniversary of Roe versus Wade. So it's good for us to pause in January and remember that for the past 4 decades we've been killing the babies. And we got to pray that the Lord would help us to come to our senses, our most basic senses, and stop this. Sunday drive home. Talking about the March for Life. If you want some thoughts on the baptism of Jesus, here I'll put the video. You can click there and you can watch the whole thing. God's peace be with you.